Yeah, so welcome to some of you. I think it's your first time here, no? Yeah. Okay, great. Welcome. Um, Online, I recognize everyone, I think. So, yeah. So this is our third session of like 6 sessions on Bodhichitta. Yeah. So Bodhichitta, this attitude where we, yeah, based on compassion, seeing how we and others, how we ourselves experience different problems, suffering, and then countless other beings also are in the same situation. Um, yeah. Then wishing to do what, considering, what can I do to free myself, but especially others, to free others from suffering. Because if we work to free others from suffering, then by the way, we ourselves also will be reduced, be free from suffering. So then seeing that, yeah, to achieve the state in which I've eliminated all faults and perfected all my positive qualities in whatever way possible, to perfect our positive qualities, wisdom and compassion in others to the highest degree, then that's the best possible situation from within which I can work to benefit other sentient beings. So then aspiring to achieve that, so a state of full enlightenment. Achieving to achieve full enlightenment in order to benefit other sentient beings is bodhicitta. So this module in this course is all about bodhicitta. Um, so I see some of your brows furrowing, and yeah, don't worry. Whatever questions you have, I'll try to answer. No, um, yeah. So yeah. So this is tonight we look at there's two main methods for generating this attitude, bodhicitta. And tonight we'll look at the first. It's called the sevenfold cause and effect methods because it's got 7 steps, seven steps of different things to meditate on to generate bodhicitta. So before we do that, we'll just actually I thought we'll try something new tonight. We'll break out into different groups and then review what we did last week. We'll break out into groups of 3. Yeah, I think 3 will work. And I think Leah sent out questions earlier, like review questions. Last week we went over the equanimity, and I sent out some questions. So we'll break out in groups of 3, and then for 10 minutes, just go over with one another this what we discussed last week. And then yeah, then we'll come back together, and I'll try to clear up anything, and then we'll go through the sevenfold cause and effect method for tonight. Okay, clear? So before we do that, then we'll start with some brief prayers, as we usually do. Try and make it bigger so the people here can see, but they can't see. I think you have to spotlight me, maybe. Is that it? There you go. Okay, so usually we'll start with the homage to Shakyamuni Buddha. Yeah. So if you like, you can visualize Buddha in the space in front of you, or imagine him being present. So by paying homage, we kind of invoke his blessing. Compelled by great compassion, you taught the sacred Dharma to dispel all wrong views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. And then there's a nice kind of, actually, the best way to pay homage to the Buddha is to follow his advice. So then there's this nice verse of where the Buddha himself summarizes his own advice. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. And then we just, yeah, as per tradition, we offer make a short mandala offering. So the essence of the mandala offering is essentially you imagine offering, yeah, the entire universe and especially everything most pleasant in it. And then on that basis, then request guidance. So, yeah, or request teachings. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Kamera Tayami. And then especially for, yeah, for those who are Buddhist or who wish to participate in that, then as you know, as a Buddhist practice, usually at the beginning of any practice, we go for refuge, sort of with faith, turn the mind towards the Buddha, the teacher, the Dharma, his teaching, and the spiritual community, the Sangha, who upholds his teaching. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my two collections of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my two collections of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my two collections of explaining the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Okay, so that's the preliminary prayers. And now I'll share and maybe, Leah, if you have, maybe it's good you put these in the chat, the questions, because many people probably don't have it at their fingertips. So yeah, we'll put the questions, the review questions in the chat for you online. Because now we'll break out into breakout rooms or go into breakout rooms in groups of 3. So just as best you can. I mean, first, if you don't know each other already, introduce yourself to one another. And then, as best you can, just read through the questions and discuss with each other, how you might answer those and try to help each other kind of remember, in short, mainly remember what we went through last week. That's the main idea. Okay. And for those in the room here at Land of Medicine Buddha, I'll share the questions. And then we can also divide up into, yeah, oops, what am I doing? Oops, I just switched documents. I keep doing that. Divide up into, okay, little groups. But, for some of you, or those, especially those who weren't here last week, you need to be with someone who was. Otherwise, you'll be lost. Um, It was nice to hear your discussions in the room. It sounded very good, very productive now, helpful. Okay, online people look happy too. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Yeah, from any of the groups, were there any outstanding questions that you felt like you couldn't, between you all, you couldn't remember? Equanimity, immeasurable equanimity. Yeah. Yeah, that was probably the most difficult question, of the different kinds of equanimity, because it's not, I mentioned it at the beginning and it's not so often talked about. Why don't I share the slide from last week with that, uh, where I showed that. That'll probably help. I want to discuss that. Okay, come on. Put this up there. Okay. 4 kinds of equanimity, yeah. So we'll go ahead. So there's one is like it's called meditative equanimity. Basically, it's where your mind can remain in a very even state, whereby you're not your concentration, focusing on one object, is not affected by laxity, either sinking down or excitement, where you're excited and thinking about something else, where your mind stays focused. So that's not the one that's important here. And then neutral feelings are also called feelings of yeah, neutral or equanimity. Equanimity can be used as a synonym for just neutral feelings. Whereas like some feelings, physical or mental feelings, are pleasant and some are unpleasant, and then some are just neutral, Like if asked, are you hot or cold? right now it's pretty neutral here. You're probably not too hot, not too cold. It's just kind of, so that's another kind of neutral feelings, is a kind of equanimity. And that one's not especially important for us either. And then the next two are a bit more important: equanimity of self and others. So this is one we'll speak more about next week when we speak. The second method for generating bodhicitta is called equalizing and exchanging self and others, with the idea being that ordinarily we consider ourselves more important and everybody else less important, right? So we want to equalize that sense of like who's more important here, and so we're not biased towards ourselves, considering all others as equal or more important than ourselves. So that's that kind of equanimity that we'll speak more about next week. And the one, yeah, that was important, especially this week, and in general as a precursor to either method for generating bodhicitta, is this immeasurable equanimity. So it's like mainly for oneself. To be practiced for oneself is having an unbiased regard for friends, enemies, and strangers. Means the way we when we look at others, not being biased towards those our friends or family, those we like, and being biased against certain groups or people we just have, had a run in with in the past or something. Because if we don't even out our sense of concern for others first, then when we meditate on loving kindness and compassion, it'll always be lopsided, where we generate more and more concern and affection, compassion for those we like, and maybe for strangers, but we'll always leave others, some group out or some individuals out, right? And so that's not like the best we can do, right? So the idea is to think about how, yeah, in different ways. One, it was what I mentioned in the last question, how, well, that this, yeah, well, there's different ways to think. One is that, in this life, even these two, three groups, like some I consider friends, some enemies, some strangers, those can change all the time. All the time we meet strangers and they become friends. And then sometimes friends, we have falling out, they become enemies. Sometimes enemies, after some years, we get back together and we kind of find something in common, or find, amend our kind of disagreement and then become friends. So all of those three change. So they're not fixed. And that's just in one life. And then if you think in terms of many lives, then they all change radically from life to life. So if we look in that scale, a larger scale, then we can see others equally. And then also these are just labels that we apply. Some we see as friends, but other people see the same as enemies or strangers. Most people as strangers. And then people we see as enemies, others see as strangers or as dear friends. So if we let go of our particular perspective and just kind of look at it in a more objective way, then they're all equal. And then maybe the most important is what I mentioned in the last question, that, however, whatever kind of relationships we find ourselves in related to others, they're all people are the same, all animals even the same, all beings are the same, and that they fundamentally wish to have happiness and well-being and to be free from suffering. And with small animals, we can see that in terms of their instinct for self-preservation, that they don't want to be killed, right? And they want food that sustains them. So even that is a kind of expression of the wish to have well-being. In that case, just physical sustenance, and the wish to be free from suffering at the most fundamental level, the wish to live and not to die. Um, so yeah, so that's the main one. And then another form of that is wishing, is that the long-term aim is that all sentient beings, not just us, but that all sentient beings are free from attachment to those they hold dear and to anger towards those they dislike. But by beginning by trying to be like that ourselves, then we can be more influence of and inspiration to others to be like that. Okay. Maybe, yeah, any other questions from about the questions? Yeah, were you all able to help each other recall quite well? Here in the room, I know I heard very good discussions. Online, did it go okay? Okay, good. Okay, then let's carry on. So yeah, tonight, as I said, what we'll do now, um, yeah, is so there's two main methods to generate bodhicitta, and they're each like a series of topics to meditate on to build up to this attitude that may I become enlightened in order to free all sentient beings from suffering. And I know, especially some of you new to this or who are here for the first time, maybe there's a lot of questions. So we'll have time for that later. Because there is a lot involved in like, well, is it really possible to free from suffering? Possible for all sentient beings free from suffering? What is enlightenment? Yeah, those kind of questions are all important. But the two methods for generating bodhicitta are one is called the sevenfold cause and effect method. That's what we'll look at tonight. And then the other is called the method of equalizing and exchanging self and others. And that method has 5 main steps to it. So tonight we'll look at the first, the sevenfold cause and effect method. Next week we'll look at the second, the method of equalizing and exchanging self and others. And then in the third week from now, we'll look at how to combine both of those methods into one, which is considered the most powerful kind of way to meditate, to generate bodhicitta. Um, yeah. So now I'll share my slides again, and we'll go past the pink section to the green section. Okay. So I just found all these images were like on PowerPoint somewhere. So yeah, session 3, the sevenfold cause and effect method for generating bodhicitta. You see that 7 drops of water there. Yeah, see, bodhicitta is kind of it's the center. We can say the center drop, and then the 6 causes are the other drops. Yeah, I met a guy in Boulder Creek a couple weeks ago on 4th of July. Actually, I went to the 4th of July pancake breakfast at the firehouse. Um, And after breakfast, walking back to the car, we met a guy who was a friend of a friend. And he was, yeah, he makes jewelry and is all into all kinds of different symbolisms. And somehow this discussion of why 7 is considered kind of a, yeah, a sacred thing. And he mentioned, and I thought of this image. He says, I didn't look it up yet. I should look it up. That because 7 is because if you take any size circle, and have 7 of that kind of circle and put that one in the middle and then surround it by 6. Only the number 6, all the edges will meet around that, which is, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. Um, so the 7 cause and effect method. And so what we'll do, I'll describe each of these and then we'll meditate on each just briefly. And so, yeah. Yeah. But before this, it's good to meditate on equanimity. As I was just describing, and then start. So the first, the step here is probably the most difficult and requires the most explanation. So yeah, in short though, the sevenfold cause and effect. So the 7 steps are this: understanding that all sentient beings to be your mother, or that they have been your kind mother, and mother because I mean we say mother because typically for most people like the person who cares for them most is like from an infant, the one who carries them in her womb and then breastfeeds them and then cares for them kind of day and night from the time they're a small infant as they're growing up is their mother. um, and so for most people they have a very close bond with the mother and easily can recognize the great kindness of their mother. Um, but that's not, of course, that's not always the case. And it doesn't have to be one's biological mother. There might be any, someone who cared for you. So if it's not your mother, then just use whoever cared for you the most kind of selflessly and reliably and affectionately cared for you as you're growing up. Then you use that person as an example. It said mother here because for most people it's their mother, but it doesn't need to be. Um, and the idea here is that basically you think of um, one person or many people who've been incredibly kind to you in this life, and then you interpolate that, well, in a past life, I also had, a mother or a parent, father or brother or sister or spouse or friend or grandparents, aunts and uncles, people who were very kind to me, right? And then in life before that, and the life before that. And so in Buddhism, there's this idea that there's no beginning to our continuum of lives. So we've had infinite past lives because there's no beginning to the continuum of our consciousness. Our stream of consciousness flows just as it now flows now from moment to moment, day to day. then when we die, it's that stream of consciousness separates from the body. But then through the force of karma, we take rebirth again and again and again. So there's no end to the stream of consciousness in the future. There's also no beginning. So we've had countless past lives is the understanding, right? And in each of those lives, there have been people who've been very kind to us. And so we can't, and we've just like we've taken rebirth now in this life, they've taken rebirth, and none of us can remember the past. But that doesn't change the fact that they were kind to us. So in short, there's no human being, there's no animal, there's no sentient being we can point to and say that person has never been kind to me as my mother of this life, or my, someone who's been very kind to me in this life. So that's the first recognition, right? And that's probably the most difficult, because that's not an easy, thing to doesn't fit easily in our ordinary kind of view of ourselves or of others. But that's the first thing. Understanding all sentient beings to have been your kind mother or father, brother, sister, and so forth. And then remembering their kindness. So then thinking in detail about how they might have been kind to me in the past. And then generating a sense to a wish to repay their kindness, saying, what can I do to repay the way they've been kind to me? And then generating love and sort of a sense of being closeness and wishing for their well-being. And then compassion, looking at how they suffer and wishing to free them from suffering. And then an altruistic or wholehearted, or it's called exceptional intention. So this attitude, not only that may they be free from suffering and may they have happiness, but may I take personal responsibility to work towards that. May I do whatever I can to free others from suffering and establish them in lasting well-being and happiness. And then the question comes, well, what can I do to achieve that? And of course, there's many short-term things, like, helping those who are sick and hungry, working in charitable organizations, and starting a business and employing people, just helping, a neighbor out when they need help, all kinds of things, or a relative. But um, but 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 all those things are short term, right? So and we're limited in what we can do. So then thinking, well, what's the state of kind of the personal development that I can achieve in which I can do the most possible to benefit others? And then there's the idea that that's the full enlightenment. So while working in a more, immediate and temporary ways to benefit others is excellent, but we try to generate the long-term view that I'm gradually working towards achieving full enlightenment. And that's the attitude of bodhicitta, again. This thought that in order to be of the greatest possible benefit to others without discriminating between them, I myself aspire to achieve full enlightenment. So that's what we're working towards. So yeah, again, first I'll talk about, oh yeah. Well, yeah, well, let's explain each of those one by one, and then we'll meditate briefly on each of them. Yeah, before we do that, I don't know why I didn't. There's two ways. I'll skip ahead. Oh yeah. So there's two ways of grouping, though, the seven causes and effects. Seven causes and effects. There's two ways of dividing them. One is, as I already mentioned, like the first six are causes of the seventh, bodhicitta. That's the most common way to think about it. And then the others is that they're all let's see, the first four are causes of the fifth, compassion, and then the others two are as results of that. So seeing compassion, the attitude of compassion as being central, and then the others as being cause and effects from that. So again, the two ways of looking at this kind of sevenfold cause and effect is that the first six are all causes of the seventh, right? That's the most common way to look at it. And then the other is that, let's see, I'll erase here first. Okay. Is that compassion compassion is the main thing, generating compassion for sentient beings. And so the first four are causes of that, and the last two are results of compassion. And that's also a very helpful way to look at it, because I don't know, it kind of makes things a bit more simple. Like, okay, what attitude is the most beneficial? Should I focus on developing in my day-to-day life? Day-to-day life is just compassion. Um, so that yeah brings that to the fore. Okay, so let's go back to here. So I have to keep track of my time. Okay. Yeah, there's this, and so I use some nice quotations to help explain each of the steps. So this first one is from ancient Indian Buddhist master Asanga, and he says, "Oh, so this is a sutra. Actually, this is spoken by the Buddha. This is where Asanga in in one commentary he wrote, calls the levels of yogic deeds. He quotes it from a sutra. So this is spoken by Shakyamuni Buddha. So the Buddha, with his omniscient mind, is saying, I have difficulty seeing a place wherein you have not been born. So he's speaking to one person or to a group of people. He's saying, I have difficulty seeing a place wherein you have not been born, gone to, or died in the distant past. I have difficulty seeing any person in the distant past who has not been your father, mother, uncle, aunt, sister, master, abbot, guru, or someone like a guru. Like a guru means a teacher, like a spiritual teacher. So yeah, so Buddha is saying he's looking at, speaking to one person or several other people and saying, because the Buddha has, and the idea is the Buddha has clairvoyance. He can look, he can, when he observes a person, he can see, he can read their mind, and he can also see this series of past lives that they've taken because he's purified obscurations of being able to see those kind of very subtle things. So he's looking at a person and saying, I have difficulty seeing a place where you have not been born. So we think, each of us in this life, we've taken rebirth in one place. But imagine, in a past life, where was I? Sometimes we have a, special affinity with a place for no particular reason. It could be because in a past life we were born there, right? Um, so in a past life, the idea is we've taken rebirth in other places, other countries, other continents, even other planets, other world system. And then and a life before that in some other place, and a life before that in some other place. So the Buddha is saying, I have difficulty seeing a place where you have not been born. The idea is that there's no place we haven't been born in the past, or gone to in the past, or died in the past, right? I have no difficulty. So in short, in past lives, we've been associated with countless different places on planet Earth, on other planets, in other world systems or other universes. Um, yeah. And so there's no place we haven't been in before. I have difficulty seeing any person in the distant past who has not been your father, mother, uncle, aunt, sister, master, abbot, guru, or someone like a guru. So just as we've been associated with different places in the past, we've been in contact with different people. I find, one helpful way to think about this is because it's a bit difficult to imagine past lives because it's just kind of a blank to us. We can't see any of them. Yeah, I was thinking, how many of you, I want to take a survey because I'm always curious to know how many people believe past and future lives exist. So I'm going to stop sharing now so I can see the people online too. So I'm wondering, how many of you are certain that past and future lives exist? Raise your hand. You're certain. Okay. Okay. And then okay, on the online, there's a much higher percentage. Online, how many of you are certain that past and future lives do not exist? Right. There's no judgment. So none of you. Oh, interesting. Okay. And so I guess the rest of you, how many of you are kind of in the middle? Maybe does, maybe doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Oh, I'm interested that none of you are certain it doesn't exist. Right. This is probably not a representation of the general population because you're all here for a Buddhist course. But but that's yeah, interesting. Okay. I'm actually surprised how many of you are certain does exist. Because when I'm explaining about past and future lives, in the back of my mind, there's always a niggling doubt, like, how many people really believe this or not? No. And usually I'm trying to speak to the people who are in the middle, right? Because, yeah, it's no fun preaching to the choir. Um, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so what I was saying though is because for I mean, yeah, I won't ask how many of you can remember your past lives. That would be a bit too personal. I can't for sure. But I do have some, I don't know, you see some kind of funny, you like a certain kind of music or a certain kind of
I don't know, just imagine when you imagine things, a certain kind of imagination of things keeps coming up, then you kind of think, oh, maybe some indication. Um, but we do know, but we are familiar with this life, right? And our experience of this life, and we know we're going to die, right? So one way I find helpful in this meditation to understand all sentient beings as being your mother is to, remember just, okay, a mother of this life, or a parent or a friend, or people who've been very kind, really genuinely, selflessly kind to us in this life. And you think of those people, and then think, okay, 100 years from now, where will I be? Where will they be? Like I will have died. And if you believe in rebirth, then I'll have taken rebirth somewhere else, hopefully as a human, assume as a human. They will also have died, all these people, and they'll have taken rebirth. And then imagine you were to not meet them, but just you were to be in the same, the same course, or you were to live on the same street, or you go to the same school with them. Like neither of you would remember. They wouldn't recognize you as anything. You wouldn't recognize them. You would be strangers to each other, assuming you're not reborn in the same family or something. But assuming you're born in different families, then essentially you'd be strangers to each other. But yet, like in the life before, in this life, you were very close. They were very kind to you, and you were very grateful to them. So in a way, it's kind of a tragic. It seems like a tragic thing, that you don't recognize each other. Um, but yet, the fact is that the fact that they were very kind to you before, it doesn't change. Even you can't recognize them and they can't recognize you. The fact that they were very so kind to you in this life, that doesn't change. That's the same. So we're using that kind of thinking and extending that to all sentient beings, starting with that I've had countless past lives. In each of those lives, there have been people who've been as kind to me as in this life. Um, and then, and so therefore, when I look at all other people in the world and animals, so forth, there's none of them I can point to and say they haven't been incredibly kind to me. So therefore, in remembrance of that, I should I should do whatever I can to repay that kindness. Um, and then, yeah, one last thing to mention before we meditate on this idea, um, is that because this doubt might come. Well, there have also been a lot of people who are really mean to me in this life, who have been really cruel to me. And in countless past lives, that's also been the case. So equally as every sentient being has been kind to me, they've also been cruel to me. So why should I focus on the one and not the other? Well, the answer is because we want to benefit and not harm, right? If we think about how every sentient being has been as cruel to me as the person who's been treated me the worst or harmed me the most in this life, then how will that affect our mind? It'll be not well. No, it'll make us kind of paranoid and resentful, and it'll be very disturbing to the mind. Um, and it won't. And what benefit would there be for us? There won't really be any benefit. So if we think about, others as being kind, and this is not to make us like suckers or people who can be easily taken advantage of or something like that, but it's to benefit us, right, in the long run. So if we think about and recognize in a genuine way, not just making up some kind of fantasy thing, we want to, check if this is real or not. How others have been kind to us, it benefits us. It brings us happiness in the moment, and then it also leads us into treating other people in a way we would want to be treated, and developing good, relationships with others and having a meaningful life. Whereas if we think about it the other way, it causes us to be kind of resentful and distrusting, and maybe, totally dismissive of other people, which leads to harm, to us in this life. So yeah, just to have that down. Okay, so let's just do a very short few minutes of meditation on this idea, and then yeah, then you can, if you like to do this, you can spend more time on it during the week. So yeah, get comfortable. Begin to focus your attention within on your breath. Mm. Yeah, and then imagine your past lives. So imagine, what, how is this, how you relate to this statement by the Buddha that there's no place we haven't taken rebirth, that we haven't taken rebirth, and there's no one who in some past life has not been our mother, father, aunt, uncle, friend, sibling, or a teacher, and so forth. So imagine, the past life. Start with just one, and how there have been people, that you've been connected with and have helped you, been kind to you, just like in this life. And then think of another. Mm. And then, in short, just before we end this, so the main point is to check, does this seem true or not? That either, if we've had countless past lives, that we've had, countless sentient beings have been kind to us in those past lives. At least, if not, I mean, some try to state that, well, that means every sentient being has been as kind to us as our mother of this life in some past life. Although that logically, it's not really watertight. But at least um, you cannot point to any sentient being and definitively say that one has not been as kind to me as someone who's been very kind to me in this life. But does that seem true or not? Mm. Mm. Okay, relax your attention there. So then we'll look at the next two together, the next two steps. So this is remembering their kindness and then repaying their kindness. So again, I'll read some verses from Indian Buddhist master Chandra Gomin in his text called Letter to a Student. So he says, Um, yeah, let's read what he says first. When you see that your relatives are engulfed in the ocean of psychic existence and are as if fallen into a pit of fire, there is nothing more shameful than to work for your own liberation, neglecting those whom you do not recognize due to the process of death and rebirth. Yeah. So there's pointing out that thing that I was saying that, there's people that, if we are relatives or friends that if they fell into, fell on really hard times, and then we neglected, even though we could, we neglected to do anything to help them, that'd be quite shameful, right? Um, but similarly, but there's others we don't recognize due to the process of death and rebirth, because they've died, we've died, and we've both taken rebirth, so we don't recognize them. And yet, if we could do something to help them, he's saying basically that's no excuse for not doing something to help them. Um, and the infant on the mother's lap cannot do anything, and suckles milk which flows through love, while through that same love the mother endures many hardships. Who even among the most disreputable wants to leave and abandon those who provided a home? Who carefully looked after the child with compassion, and who are afflicted without refuge and suffering? Right. So there he's describing quite poetically, the kindness of one's mother, that she, carries one in the womb, cares for one as an infant, cleans, feeds, protects from harm, sings to go to sleep, and is very kind, like the infant on the mother's lap. And as an infant, we're totally helpless. That I'm an infant human, infant animal, even we're born as a dog or a cat or other, mammals. You have a mother that cares for you. And we're totally helpless without our mother having kindly cared for us, or our parents, our grandparents. We wouldn't have lived past, 6 months old, even a few months old. So the infant lives on the mother's lap, cannot do anything, and suckles milk which flows through love. So it said, yeah, breast milk flows when the mother feels affection for the child. The mother doesn't feel much affection and won't flow easily. Said even by scientists, I understand. While through that same love, and then because of the mother's affection or the parent's affection for the child, then they endure many hardships. No, they work hard at jobs. They take risks in business. They like even mother animals in the animal kingdom. A mother and especially the mother, sometimes the father, even they risk their life. A predator comes and they kind of what do you say? They let the predator get very close to them and draw them off in a different direction. Put their own their life at risk. Even sometimes parents they lie or steal in order to have more prosperity for their children. Um, who even among the most disreputable wants to leave and abandon those who provided a home, who carefully looked after us. So generally, we feel great gratitude to those who gave us a home as a child, who carefully looked after the child with compassion, and who are afflicted without a refuge and suffering. Um, yeah. So the two stages here are remembering their kindness. So first, thinking how all sentient beings have been our mother, father, brother, sister, sibling, spouse, so forth in the past lives. And then remembering their kindness. The way we do that is by remember the kindness of those who've been people we know in this life, right? And then we generate the wish to repay their kindness. Think, don't I have a responsibility to do something in return to help them in whatever way I can, to repay their kindness. So I think that's pretty straightforward. So let's meditate on that for a few minutes. I will spend a few minutes, yeah, thinking about each. So again, direct your attention within to your breath. Just kind of clear your mind. So it helps to do this visualization we did last week, where you imagine those you are tend to be closer to, friends and family, to your right and left and behind you, representing that they are the most supportive to you in this life. So usually you begin with or imagine a mother of this life, and then female friends and family on our left, and then our father and male friends and family to our right and behind us. And then imagine those you're most prone to become angry, irritated with, or to dislike, facing in front of you, facing towards you, in order to, help us remember to make special effort to practice um, kindness and forgiveness, tolerance towards them. And then all the other sentient beings that exist, imagine in human form, seated all around us, filling all of space. So then in the previous meditation, we were reflecting how all these sentient beings, we've been connected with them in various ways from life to life, and especially how, they've been kind to us in different roles as a mother, a father, brother, sister, and so forth in past lives. Or at least there's no sentient being we can point to and say they haven't been kind to me in some way in some past life. So now we want to reflect on how they've been kind to us, right? Their kindness. And of course, since we don't have clairvoyance, seeing past lives, we reflect on those people who've been kindest to us in this life. And then continually think how, well, other sentient beings have similarly been kind to me. Right? So take a few minutes and just think about the people who've been kindest to you in this life. And you could think in different ways. One way is think in stages of your life. First, when you were, first in your mother's womb, or soon after you were born, or in, a toddler, and then, as a young child, then as a teenager, as a young adult, and so forth, up till now. Think of the people who've been most kind to you in different parts of your life and how they've been kind to you. Mm. And then imagine then how all other sentient beings in some past life have similarly been kind to you. Mm. And then again, coming back to the people you can recognize in this life who've been kind to you, try to generate the wish to repay their kindness. So thinking, how can I repay their kindness? And then if that wish can arise strongly, then extend it to other sentient beings, who've been kind to you in past lives. Mm. Okay, then relax your attention there. So we have to, yeah, to get through all the steps, we have to keep it kind of short, no? Let's look at the next two then, love and compassion. Um, yeah. So there's this verse from the King of Concentration Sutra. So a sutra again is always something spoken by the Buddha, um, more or less. So this says, always offering to superior beings as many countless offerings as there are in billions of lands does not equal a portion of the benefit of a loving attitude. So the idea here is the superior, always offering to superior beings means, the most enlightened beings, like the Buddhas or enlightened beings. So no matter what kind of generosity we practice, offering, the best things to, people who are hungry, thirsty, or people who are, wise, powerful, whatever kind of generosity we practice, offering things, as many countless offerings as there are in billions of lands, does not equal a portion of the benefit of a loving attitude. So one, moment of practicing loving kindness, generating love and affection for someone, is far superior in merit, or in the kind of power of that positive power that has. So yeah, love through the force of attraction here means love in generally is the attitude of love in as a way as it's described in Buddhist psychology, is when we observe a person, either ourselves or another person, and I think it can even be an inanimate object. We can have love for, the sun or the ocean or the trees or the environment. But it's observing an object and just wishing that it flourish, in short, wishing that it be well and happy, and whatever, is best for that, for ourselves, for another, for environment, whatever's best for that, may that happen. Um, so that's, yeah, in short, that's the attitude of love. It's very simple, straightforward. Um, but here it's in this context also, it's said to be something a bit more than just love, but the love, as it says, the love through the force of attraction. So seeing others in a positive light, and feeling close to them. So just like we do, the people who've been kindest to us in this life, when we think about how they've been kind to us, and we wish to repay their kindness, then we feel closer to them. And also when we recognize how we're the same, and that, we're both kind of, yeah, here in this life, struggling to do the best we can, and have different problems and confusion and make mistakes, but yet we both fundamentally are trying to do what's right, trying to be good people, and trying to find a way to have the best possible life we can have. So when we feel something in common with others, naturally we feel closer to them, and we sympathize with them. We empathize with their struggles, and we celebrate in their successes, and we feel kind of close. So it's talking about the love through the force of attraction, feeling a sense of closeness, with others. So we try to generate that, and then within that, generate just the wish that they be well and happy. So that's love. And then the second is compassion. And here's thinking about compassion in a very deep way is, ordinary compassion is when we see others suffering, having a hard time, and we wish for them to be free from that. We see others in pain, having mental or physical, um, you know, misery and pain, and we want them to be free from that. But a deeper kind of compassion is thinking about not only specific instance of, problems someone has, but thinking about the larger situation they're in, right? And wishing them to be free from that whole, kind of complex, the complex kind of, misery of that situation. And so, in the terms of Buddhism, means also past and future lives. The fact of being in samsara, of taking rebirth, then experiencing old age, aging, and experiencing sickness, and then dying from that birth, and then taking rebirth again. And so, being in this whole cycle of a rebirth of samsara, where we take rebirth and die again and again, and are separated from all we are familiar with again and again, and all those we love again and again through the force of karma and afflictive emotions, right? So that's what it's describing here. Swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers. So the four powerful rivers, one way to think about them is birth, aging, sickness, and death. So swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, of selfishness and ignorance. Completely enveloped, or selfishness, yeah, completely enveloped by the darkness of ignorance, being not like ignorance, also not being able to see our past and future lives and see how karma works, endlessly reborn in cycling existence, ceaselessly tormented by the three types of suffering, three sufferings. So the suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and pervasive compounding suffering. Thinking that all mothers, so all those, sentient beings who have all been our mothers in past lives, thinking that all mothers are in such a condition, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. So that's the attitude of compassion. So, yeah, I think because we're running out of time, quickly I'll just describe all these four, and we'll meditate on them all at once. So then 6 is as altruism, or wholehearted resolve, or exceptional. Those are all synonyms, exceptional intention. So basically it's this idea that it's taking us personal responsibility, seeing that all the sentient beings have been kind to me, wanting to repay their kindness, wishing for them to have happiness and well-being, wishing for them to be free from suffering, and especially all the suffering of samsara. Then thinking, I myself, this must be something I devote myself to, that I commit myself to, that I take personal responsibility for doing whatever I can to benefit beings in this way, is that. And then bodhicitta is then beyond this, then thinking, well, what can I do? I can be, I have the potential for full enlightenment just by virtue of having a mind. I have the potential to eliminate all faults, of mind, and cultivate all positive qualities of mind, wisdom and compassion and so forth. So therefore, I should strive to achieve that, to perfect all positive, all possible positive qualities that I can, and to eliminate every fault, every, action of my body, speech, and mind that's harmful to others, to eliminate all that and even the seeds of that. In short, I'll strive to achieve full enlightenment. So that's the attitude of bodhicitta. Yeah. Any short questions about any of that before we meditate? Thinking we're going to meditate on those last 4 steps, just briefly. But yeah, any questions, especially that you think if I don't ask this question, I can't meditate? Yes, Joe.
Hello. I have a question or a conundrum. So I understand that generating and demonstrating bodhicitta and compassion is a very good thing, but I can't make it fit logically with not having seeing everybody as equal and cultivating a mind that is free from attachment and aversion. So we do that, but then we jump to choosing compassion, which is it's very positive, but it's one end of a polarity. So
what's the other end?
Well, the other end is, I suppose, being really horrible to people, really nasty.
I see, okay.
That's the kind of I'm trying to work out how that fits with having a balanced neutral mind.
Okay, I don't quite understand your question. So on the one hand, so you're saying these two things, compassion and then having a balanced neutral mind, they seem not to fit together, right?
Yes.
But how? Why?
Because compassion is a positive choice. It's one end of a polarity. So it's out of balance. It's I mean, I think it's a good thing, but it's, for me, that it doesn't fit.
Okay. Well, first of all, that's okay. It doesn't have to, I mean, it's good that you're aware that it doesn't fit for you. So yeah, maybe try to explore maybe for yourself what would fit, what would be a more kind of comfortable attitude. That's one way to think about it. Another way, Joe, to think about it is, well, I mean, but the scale you're talking about is like, well, you can be really horrible to people or be compassionate to people. So what's the problem with being like really on the good end of the scale?
Nothing. I don't. Nothing. I think it's preferable, okay. But for me, it doesn't fit with trying to develop a mind that is neutral, that is.
I think maybe you're mistaking what we mean by neutral here, because when we talk about neutral in the first step, it means having an equal sense of concern for others, not a mind that's neutral in every way, right? We don't want a mind that just doesn't feel anything or is kind of cold like that. Yeah.
I suppose I'm thinking in general, kind of out with this module. Yeah, learning to not be swayed by anything or that we come across. Have non-attachment. But having compassion is a choice to go to one end of a polarity.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you think about it. You think about it.
Joe talking about the second equanimity, the neutral equanimity, which meant not being pleasant and not being averse.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But yeah, maybe we can come back to it later. But you think about it, Joe. I'm sorry, I don't have a clear answer for you there.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? No. Okay. Yeah, we only have about 5 minutes or so left, so let's go ahead and meditate on this last 4 steps. Yeah, so again, sit comfortably and draw your attention within to your breath. Just kind of clear your mind. Mm. And then briefly review the first 3 steps we've already been over, recognizing how countless sentient beings are kind to us as a mother, father, and so forth in past lives, or recognizing that they've been a kind mother, father, and so forth in past lives, and then how they've been kind to us, just as those people have been kind to us in this life, and then generating a wish to repay their kindness. So briefly recall those. So then we'll briefly meditate on the love of attraction, where we feel a sense of connectedness and affection for others, and wish that they be well and happy, that they flourish, and that whatever is best for them can come about for them. So I suggest you start with one other person, or even start with yourself, if you like. And then for yourself or for one other person, when you generate this attitude of love, may they be well, may they be happy. From your heart, generate that intention, that wish for them. And when you feel that develop genuinely, then start to spread it out to others more and more, extending it out as far as you can in the short time we have. So meditating on love. And then meditating on compassion. So observing the same people, oneself and others, then remember different sufferings that they have, body and mind, different hardships they face. And then the larger picture of being, in samsara. So again, begin with yourself or with one other person, and then as you observe suffering, different sufferings experience, then generate the wish, may they be free from that. Just simply that. May they be free from suffering, this suffering and every suffering and the cause of suffering. So meditate on compassion for a couple minutes. And then in the 1 minute or so remaining, just try to generate a taste of the last two. So after compassion being this altruistic intention or this exceptional intention, thinking I myself must do whatever I can to free sentient beings from suffering and bring them happiness. And then the final that therefore I must become fully enlightened. So the aspiration, wishing oneself to become fully enlightened in order to accomplish the welfare of others as best we can. So try to generate those two. Mm. Okay, we end there with the dedication. So yeah, we can dedicate. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama always dedicates that for as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then also may all sentient beings be free from every form of suffering and the causes of suffering and have every form of well-being and happiness up to full enlightenment. Then bring to mind any personal prayers you'd like to make or dedications for any individuals or causes. So bring those to mind. So may all of your own prayers be accomplished exactly as you wish, in whatever way is most beneficial. And especially we dedicate for the land of Medicine Buddha, the center hosting this event. May the center be free of any obstacles and have every supportive condition to working for the welfare of the flourishing of the Dharma, Buddha Dharma in the world, and for the benefit of sentient beings. Okay, thank you all, and see you next week again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.